Disney does not make them like they used to. Before rehashing their own classics multiple times, they made movies like The Straight Story. Based on a true story in 1994, Alvin Straight, played by Richard Farnsworth, learns his estranged brother recently had a stroke he may never recover from. Because his eyesight forbids him to drive a car, he hitches a trailer of supplies to his lawnmower, driving from Iowa to Wisconsin, coming across different people, and sharing stories about how his past has shaped his life. We all know an elderly man like Alvin Straight, or at least the version of him in this film. Someone with health concerns that make him more aware and afraid of his own mortality, but too stubborn to do anything about it because he's at an age where he's seen and done everything you could in life. That is, until he hears about his brother. He's not just worried he'll never see his brother again, he's scared he might not make it himself. But making it in time for his brother ironically gives him the will to live he hasn't had in quite some time. In the beginning of his trip, when he's all alone on the open road or his tractor breaks down, he knows he can learn from his mistakes, find another solution, and carry on with the trip, keeping a hopeful smile and attitude in the process. But the longer the trip takes, the more the roads and his insecurities test him physically and mentally. And all of that shines through thanks to such a powerful yet understated performance from Richard Farnsworth, who effortlessly earned his final Oscar nomination here. Without any dialogue, a simple shot of him smiling at a rainstorm he's hiding under says everything he's experiencing. But because he's on the road for so long, when he meets and reminisces with people, his monologues about life are equally impactful. Especially when he comes across a young runaway and he tells her this family metaphor that legitimately choked me up, and not for the last time in this movie either. In fact, the most impressive part of The Straight Story is, of all the movies I've seen about life and death, this one presents life in its most authentic. Characters don't speak like poets through whispered inner monologues to the point of being pretentious. Most of the dialogue consists of people asking Alvin straight questions or vice versa, with their awkward pauses or responses resembling what someone would actually say in these scenarios. And because these characters have had these thoughts on their mind for quite some time with no one to share with, the cinematic speeches still feel warranted, a release or vent of their frustrations that's therapeutic and relatable. But since the movie's almost entirely told from Alvin's point of view, by the time he moves on to the next stop, most of these characters have arcs that either aren't resolved or have just begun, making it kind of ambiguous if they actually find the closure they're looking for. But because of their interactions with him, you hope they do. Hell, a couple character arcs have already ended before the movie begins. Sissy Spacek as his daughter starts off so basic you wonder why she's even in it, until a flashback reveals, without getting into specifics, that life has dealt her a bad hand that she's had to deal with ever since. But without spoiling anything, we do see Alvin's brother, played excellently by Harry Dean Stanton. And with less than 5 minutes of screen time, the expressions, the line delivery between him and Farnsworth was so emotional I struggled to fight back tears. Now for all the realism I've just mentioned, it probably doesn't sound like something David Lynch would do, and fans used to his more fantastical works often point that out. But he still creates a surreal atmosphere that's more about giving mundane daily life this dreamlike state of mind where montages of multiple fade-ins, scene transitions that fade to black, or close-up tracking shots of a road's yellow lines like the world's fastest escalator, put you in this hypnotic trance elevated by Angelo Badalamente's beautiful musical score, and makes visual motifs out of the most plain imagery to the point where you might miss it. A montage of cornfields being plowed over and over again can be just a simple atmospheric visual, or a life cycle metaphor where life is planted, grown, only to be harvested while crops are planted and plucked over and over again, depending on how the viewer sees it. But some things like the constant stargazing are clearly there to be symbolic, the obvious metaphor where, whether someone's alive or dead, our friends and family are always with us. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. It's based in truth and still works emotionally. Lynch's surrealist attention to these small but crucial details are so specific that whenever a conversation is in a wide angle, we can barely make out what they're saying until it cuts back to a close-up. The deliberate, uneven pacing in this mostly works, but there are times where you feel it more than you should. The tractor rides, campouts, and conversations never have a consistent flow of time, being the movie's prime example of how life abruptly shifts from energized to boring at any given point, so it works on that level. But there comes a point where Alvin's stuck in one town for a few days, and outside of a great conversation in a bar between him and a fellow veteran, the townspeople he talks to aren't really that interesting, and they literally grind the movie to a halt, which is kind of ironic considering Alvin's constantly moving throughout the rest of the film. And there's also one scene that kinda has a purpose. Alvin comes across someone he can't help with because she's too preoccupied with her troubles, but God, the acting is so over the top, it doesn't mesh with the rest of the tone. And the character is a complete Karen that you don't care about, though I will say it leads to a scene involving a deer that was so morbid, I still don't know how to feel about it. While I haven't seen every David Lynch movie, let alone have been a diehard fan, his recent retirement announcement does kinda bum me out, knowing that we have one less original filmmaker out there. He made a G-rated family drama that appeals so well to adults, its rating is invisible. And unlike most biopics, Lynch portrays the simple subjects so naturally you forget it's even based on a true story. All you do is watch and just soak in those quiet moments. Or you just find it boring, I don't know.